We know that helping doesn't always help, or sometimes helping hurts, actually. And so we have not put a priority on relief ministries, just giving people money, but rather teaching them to fish.
I don't believe in retirement. I believe in redeployment, and God's certainly done that for both of us, and He's really allowed us to serve at this stage in our lives.
You're listening to the Wisdom for Wealth for Life podcast, brought to you by Blue Trust. In this episode, we have Managing Director of Blue Trust, Gary Bell. He speaks with Blue Trust clients Bekah and Mike Mulvaney. The Mulvaneys share with us on how they choose what charities to give to, and how they inspire their children and grandchildren to give effectively. Let's listen in now.
Well, Mike and Bekah, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. I'm excited and looking forward to a fun conversation. You guys have been clients for 25 plus years now, and it has been a pleasure for me and my team to walk with you in your stewardship journey. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, many of our listeners want to be generous, but they're not really sure exactly where to give. Can you share with us a little bit about your stewardship journey and how you choose organizations to give to and get involved with?
I think it really starts with something that we learned real early in life, and it was simply that we needed to spend less than we made. And kind of a basic philosophy that we both kind of grew up with. We kind of grew up with not much, and so it became as we progressed and as my salary increased with the company, we did not index our style of living necessarily to follow that. So we lived with a surplus for much of that time, and were able to save and also able to give. I think we started out convinced early in our marriage that we wanted to tithe. So we started tithing from our take-home salary. And after a short while, God convicted us that we needed to tithe on our total salary. And so that increased. And then as we grew, we felt like God was encouraging us to increase that a percent or so as we went along. So we would set goals to continue to increase. I think our goal was to ultimately be able to give away twice or three times what we lived on. And so that kind of started pretty early in our marriage and pretty early in our life. And I think it rooted from the fact that we believe everything we have, God has given to us. He has blessed us richly, and it's really all His. And we want to be good stewards of what He's given us. So I think that's kind of led to the philosophy and caused us to look at how can we be generous, and how can we put the money where God would want it to go.
We had a really generous parents that didn't have very much money, but they were generous with their lives. They lived generously. They were always serving people, giving of what they had, whatever they had, to others. And so we saw that. And then when he got a good job, and we were like, what do we do with all this money? Well, we weren't going to just keep it for ourselves, but like he said, we saw ourselves as being receivers of God's good gifts, and that we just were stewards to figure out where He wanted us to put it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, one of the things I've always appreciated about you is your desire to want to pass your heart for generosity to your kids and grandkids. How do you involve your whole family in your generosity journey and the work that you're involved in?
Well, when our kids were little in the home, we actually started them thinking about, I think, how they were going to give. So, like, even when they were making a $1 allowance, we give them envelopes, and they'd have an envelope for giving it, and they'd take 20 cents of that dollar to church with them on Sunday, and they'd put 20 or 30 cents into a savings envelope, and then the rest was their spending money. And so then as they got older, and then when in high school, when they got jobs, they were still operating out of envelopes, and just buying their own makeup and their own clothes and things like that with their spending money. but also always giving to God and also saving some. So I think they were on that journey, plus the fact that we were involving them in outreach to, like inviting people into our home or serving in volunteer ways. Now that we have grandkids, we're trying to involve our grandkids. We aren't managing or teaching them hands-on all the time, but our grandkids are all far away. But when they come in the summer, we have we talk about a gift that we can give as a whole family. And so we have them all vote on what causes are close to their hearts. Like if, I give them a list of maybe 20 things, like maybe it's clean water, maybe it's the issue of orphans, maybe it's the issue of the hungry or the trafficked or these different things. And they vote on it and they come up with their top causes that they feel strongly about. Our kids, our grandkids, a lot of them feel very strongly about helping orphans. So then we select a ministry that's doing a good job with orphans, and we give a family gift to that. So that's how we involve them.
And then we report back to them basically what the results are. We share with them the ministry that we chose in that area based on their votes and why we chose it, and try to help them understand some of how we evaluate ministries as we try to determine which ones are doing the best job in the area we want to support.
And we're trying to teach them how to research whether a organization is doing a good job or not. If they're look at their financials and those other things that we look at. That's
great. Is there ever is there consensus usually amongst the group on where they want to give, or how do you guys work through some of those issues?
I think they're just thrilled to have a voice. That they get to vote. We tell everybody to vote for their top 3. And then if we have, several things, then we'll give to more than one organization from that gift.
Yeah, we have two children and their spouses, and then 9 grandchildren, and so we get pretty good, and everybody gets a vote. So, we kind of go with the majority rules at the end. We explain to them why where we're going with it.
That's great. And do the parents get the same vote as the grandkids?
They do. Yeah. Everybody gets a vote.
That's awesome. That's good. Well, can you both share some ways that you get involved in ministries, not just with your financial resources or your treasure, but also as you invest your time and your talent and your passions?
Sure.
I think we've really been privileged in that. Fortunately, Procter & Gamble treated me really well, and I was able to retire and not need to be paid at 55. And so I have basically worked for the last 18 years, pretty much a full-time community pastor role at our church, and been able to invest my life really in other young men. I do a lot of mentoring, one-to-one mentoring. I lead a number of men's groups. Together, we coach a number of community groups in our church. We're a celebration and cell church, and so we have lots of small groups, and we visit those groups. So we're often visiting groups 2 or 3 nights a week, and love doing that. It's something we can do together in ministry that we really enjoy. So just involving our lives in others. And Bekah really leads more. She's really got a teaching gift, and so I'll let her talk about
Well, I think that the way we spend our lives, the way we spend our money is the easy part. The spending of our time and our energy for us is a bigger commitment and a bigger sacrifice. And we do make sacrifices to really pour into the kingdom, I think. We've found our sweet spots, like what God really made us to do. God made me to teach and to write, and he made Mike to coach. And so we're constantly discipling people. We're teaching people across coffee shop tables and kitchen tables and things like that. And one of the classes that I've taught for the last, going on 20 years is about helping people figure out what they were made for, how God created them and uniquely designed them to serve him in what ways, and when you find that way that you are uniquely designed with your passions and your spiritual gifts and your personality and all that you are, and you start serving him in those ways, you're just energized by it. You don't run out of steam. You don't get burnout. And it's a way of dedicating your life to him and just all that he is calling you to do.
I think one of the really fun things that I've been able to do, I have three or four different men's groups that I lead, that I have influence in. And so I've got a number of guys that are kind of at my stage of life. And so I see 30 or 40 guys every week, and our goal together is to finish well. And how do we help each other do that? And it really does, I think, take a village in this case to help one another do that, and to call each other out. And these are some really we've developed great friendships over the years. I really feel like I've had the privilege this last 20 years since I've been retired I feel like I'm living the dream. I mean, this is what I was made to do. I was a workaholic as an employee earlier in my life, and I still have a tendency to be a workaholic, but I don't get compensation for it, but I certainly have great joy in doing it. So that's the
lot of
best,
rewards.
a lot of rewards that are hard to quantify, in some ways.
Yeah, that's great. Mike, you mentioned doing this for the last 20 years since you retired. If you go back and think about when you were contemplating retiring, did you know that this was going to be the path that you were going to take? Was this a desire that you had back then?
I'm not sure I knew. I felt like I had a real confidence that God had something for me. I didn't know what that was. I thought it might be involved with trying to run a nonprofit or use some of the experiences I'd had as a manager of manufacturing to redeploy. I don't believe in retirement. I believe in redeployment, and God's certainly done that for both of us. And he's really allowed us to serve at this stage in our lives. And I have lots of energy, and I get up every morning looking forward to who I'm going to be with and what God's going to teach me that day. A day that I don't learn something new from God is something it's a day wasted. So.
Yeah, that's great. Bekah, so when you were raising both your children and Mike was working a lot, as you mentioned, it's one thing to be able to give money, but then also to try to figure out how you give your time, and then trying to figure out what your passion is. Back then, how did you manage and juggle all of that to develop into the mentor and the speaker that you are now?
Wow. Just being faithful in each little step. I think the first thing out of obedience I had to do was start reading the Bible and being in a Bible study, and then realizing that the women started looking to me as a leader, and I started being more of a teacher. And so I got invited to teach children for a while. And so I trained myself and took classes and read lots of material on how to teach children. I got better and better at teaching children. And then I was invited into women's ministries, and I started. So it was a step by step of obedience. It seems like you don't know where you're going. And probably what I'm doing right now is just preparation for something else. I don't know what it is, but it's that step by step obedience, I think, as God puts something on your heart, or as people open doors and give you opportunities. And you might think, oh, I can't do that, or I've never done that before, but that's the very door that you need to walk through a lot of times.
I think one of the keys was that she didn't use having young children as an excuse not to participate and not to do things. She took them with her. She found ways to creatively, engage with them. And then we had the privilege, as they were growing up, of doing a lot of things. We did a lot of serving together. the kids and I did a number of habitat builds, and our daughter ended up with a degree in construction management because of all the habitat work we had done growing up building habitat houses. And so they learned to serve. And one of the beauties I've watched them do as adults is they're still, both of our children are driving that in their own families. And they're taking their own children to serve in various ways, both in California and in Colorado now. And so it's neat to see them copying and doing the same thing we did with them. So I think it's going to get passed on. I've heard statistics that if you serve with your children actively when they're young, there's a 90% probability that they will become servers as they become adults as well. So I think there's something to that.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of times we kids will pick up things more than they hear the things that we're saying. So yeah, that's great. You guys have been a great example of that. So when you think of teach a man to fish, do any stories come to mind with that phrase?
Yeah, we know that helping doesn't always help, or sometimes helping hurts actually. And so we have not been as choiceful in, not choiceful, that's not the word. We have not put a priority on relief ministries, just giving people money, but rather teaching them to fish, helping them break the cycle of despair. So we would be more inclined to give our resources to training people to have a trade, or microloans, or something that would help them get on their feet, learn how to go forward without always having to get handouts. There's a ministry to the homeless people that we have gotten behind that we've been very excited about, because they don't just provide a shelter and meals for people to come in like most shelters, but they actually they give families a chance to come in for 90 days. And during that time, somebody in the family has to have a job, even if it's working at fast food or something. And then while they're in the 90 days, they have to put everything that they make in auto deposit at the bank. They help them open a checking account or
and all their food and
account.
everything is provided for them. The housing,
all their needs are met while they are living in the shelter for 90 days. But while they're there, they're also getting budget counseling. They have a social worker helping them find a better job. They have parenting classes and Bible studies. And so by the end of the 90 days, they have a nest egg in order to get into an apartment.
To have a deposit and get into an apartment.
Yeah, and they can
get off the street.
And then they encourage churches to adopt a family in that, help them get their furniture or a car or whatever they need for that apartment. So it sets them on their feet. And they're, I don't know if they use the word recidivism rate like they do with prisoners in prison, but these people actually stay off the streets. They're able to get a start.
So they have a 90+% rate of getting people off and keeping them off. So it's good ministry. So
we get very excited about that, because it's actually taught them how to, and the same with Habitat for Humanity, they teach the families how to take care of a home and make their payments and all that. So those kind of ministries that are actually helping people move forward in their lives.
Make a lifestyle change rather than teaching dependence.
And I could say something about how we choose the ministries that we support. That's been kind of a fun thing for us to look at really what God puts on our heart as far as a cause, like for, while our kids were teenagers, I think it is when we really felt a call to support teenagers and youth that are in crisis. And so we took that cause being on our heart to look for ministries or organizations that were doing the best job of meeting the needs of youth in the inner cities and in different places. Like we found a ministry in New Jersey that was really helping youth and after-school programs and helping them get into colleges and that kind of thing. We found a great camp for inner city kids in Missouri. We found a great organization in Nashville that was meeting the needs of women in crisis, young women in crisis. So we took that. Now, right now, I think our focus is more on unreached people groups around the world. And so we're looking at the ministries and organizations that are really reaching the unreached where there are no churches.
And we kind of step back about once a year. We'll pull back and kind of pray about and ask God for his guidance in where he wants his resources to go. Then we'll compare what he shows us, the two of us, and we'll come to a consensus of what we want to do as a couple. And then we'll look for the best ministries based on some criteria that we look at to determine then where we want to do our giving. And we'll do it on a percentage basis. So we'll choose that, 40% will go to this and 20% will go to that and so on. And then find the best examples we can of the best data we can of ministries that are doing a good job of that.
And the way we evaluate how ministry that we want to get behind is we do look at their financial to see how much money they're actually spending on ministry as opposed to administration and fundraising, and which I know those are necessary too, but you don't want that to be more than they're spending on ministry for sure. And then we look at the results. We might start, if it's a new ministry for us, we may start at a lower level and spend a year or two getting their newsletters and seeing their annual reports and deciding if we want to get more involved.
So if you were to describe the term faithful steward, how would you describe that to somebody who has never really heard that term before?
I think a faithful steward is someone who recognizes that everything they have, everything they are, is a result of what God has given them. And that they respond to that, the love and the care that he has given them by looking for how can they best help others to reach out, to serve, to be a good steward of the gifting that God has given them. So look for opportunities to respond appropriately to what God's given them.
Yeah, I don't think we look at our money, our time, our energy as ours. It's his. And so it's like if I was given all this money from a employer and said, divvy this out and make me happy. I would be the delegator of the funding and resources. And so that's how we see ourselves, is we are just a conduit, a hose through which the water flows,
And we see it really as both a privilege and a responsibility to do that well, to steward well what God has given us. And there's joy in that. That's where the joy really is for us, I think, is feeling like we're walking in a way that honors what he's given us.
And I think the motive is gratitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've talked about over the years is just how much to leave to family versus how much to leave to ministry. And when we talk with clients, the first thing we talk about when we come to estate planning is just those two questions. How much do you want to leave to family? How much do you want to leave to ministry? Can you talk just high level briefly about your thoughts on those two questions?
Sure.
Right. You want to go over?
Okay. Well, yeah, you can add. I think we came to the decision that it was the resources that have been given to us were given to us to steward, not given to us to give to our kids to steward. And so we are primarily giving our estate in our estate planning what's left of our estate when we die will pretty much go to ministry.
To God's work.
To God's work. As far as leaving something for the children, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we have chosen to, rather than leaving them a pot of money that they'll inherit when we're old and gone, and when they probably no longer need it, we have been trying to basically distribute whatever we are going to give them now. They're both have number of kids. We have 5 grandchildren in college. One just graduated, 3 more to go. And so they're in the high cash need time. And so we've been able to help them with that at this time. So we're kind of paying it ahead in that regard. But we do feel like that we're not supposed to pass this on for them to try to steward, because although they know our hearts, they've each got their own, I think God is blessing them, and they're going to have their own opportunities to make choices like we've made with what God has given them to steward. It's kind of been our philosophy. And I think one of the things that Gary, working with you, has done is it's caused us to have a lot more confidence to go ahead and be generous now with what we have. Even that you've helped us understand that we have a significant surplus beyond what we need to finish well. And I think that's been a real breakthrough for us, because otherwise I think we might have been holding on to it for fear of a rainy day at some point. And you all have done a good job.
And without your help, we wouldn't know, do we have enough to make it to the end or not? And you've helped us analytically look at that and go, it's okay, set it free.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of what you guys are doing is you get to see how God uses it in ministry, and it multiplies much more than whatever the stock market could do. But then also in giving it what you have been given to the kids and grandkids, you also see how they use it. And you can see, as you mentioned earlier, just them being able to use it now in their high cash needs. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's great. So when we think about you guys leaving a lot to ministry when both of you pass away, how do you just determine which ministries actually get it?
Well, that's challenging, to be honest, because so many of the ministries, we support some large ministries that we know are going to continue. And so I think we're pretty confident in leaving them. They've been well established and are going to continue. There are some others that are more driven by the particular leader at the time. And you don't know what kind of legacy that's going to be. If we're talking about leaving money to an organization 20 years from now, chances are, in many cases, the leader that's there today is not going to be there in the future. So I think it makes it really challenging. But
we can make changes to it along the way.
Exactly. And we have adjusted. We've had some that we have pulled out of that because there's been a change in their direction or where they're going, that we've no longer felt like we wanted to support at the same level. So we've added some new ones as we've gotten acquainted with, and we've become more convinced that we really need to reach people in the 1040 window that have never heard and don't have an opportunity. So we've focused more of our long-term thinking in that area, I think.
That's great. Well, Mike and Bekah, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. As I mentioned to you many times, I think your stewardship journey will bless and be such an encouragement to so many of our listeners and our clients. So thank you again so much for sharing your story and sharing what God's done in your lives over your stewardship journey.
Still have a lot to learn, so
we learn every day, and we're thankful for the opportunity, and we sincerely just want to honor God with what He's given us.
That's awesome. Well, and to our listeners, thank you for joining us and for watching this podcast. If you have questions or you want to talk to someone about your stewardship journey, please go to bluetrust.com. And we have a lot of resources there, and you can find an advisor in your area to talk to. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wisdom for Wealth for Life podcast, brought to you by Blue Trust. Thanks so much for listening, And please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you are seeking financial advice, please contact us at 800-987-2987. That's 800-987-2987. Or email us at info@bluetrust.com. That's info@bluetrust.com. Trust and investment management accounts and services offered by Blue Trust are not insured by the FDIC or any other federal government agency, are not deposits or other obligations of, nor guaranteed by any bank or bank affiliate, and are subject to investment risk, including possible loss of the principal amount invested. The information in these podcasts is provided for general educational purposes only. It is not intended as specific individual advice. The client's experience may not be representative of the experience of other clients, and they are also not indicative of future performance or success. Opinions expressed may not be those of Blue Trust.